Brad Johnson here from johnson.audio. I'm here to discuss with you today the essential home recording studio setup for you as a songwriter. Now, when I was 9, I started playing guitar, and that set me on the journey for my love of music, writing music, and by my early teens, I was playing with bands, and we decided that we wanted to record. So we went out and hired people to record our band. We were young teenagers, we had no money, so we would scrounge up what we could and pool together our resources, and by the end of it, we had a recording that did not sound that good. It did not really represent our band the way that we wanted it to be represented, and it was a little disappointing. I've been through that a few times before I turned 18, and I decided that it was time for me to take matters into my own hands and invest in my own studio equipment so that I could have control over the process and get the sound that was in my head out into the world. Easy, right? Not so much, because if you are in this particular point in your journey where you're deciding to start investing in your own equipment, or maybe you've already invested in some equipment but you're not really quite there yet and you're thinking about investing in more, you really can start to see that it is very daunting. There's a lot of information out there about what gear you need to make a professional recording. You have different schools of thought. You have the minimalist approach. You have kind of the old school maximalist approach where you need all this expensive gear to make a professional recording. And I'm not going to say which one or which way is better than the other. I will say that I have experienced both camps. I've worked in the lowest of budgets, home studios, and I've worked in high budget recording studios. And so I kind of have my own school of thought on this process. But when I was 18, basically what I could afford and what I was told to get was a computer, an interface, some microphones, headphones. And so I went out and bought myself a MacBook, one of those really old school MacBooks, the white ones. This is probably like 2006, probably 2006, yeah. So that's an old school MacBook. I got a little M-Audio, a little M-Audio M-Box for a Pro Tools setup. It was basically like Pro Tools Lite. I had a couple of Audio-Technica microphones, like a pack, like a large diaphragm condenser and a small diaphragm condenser. It cost like $150. And I was out to the races. I had enough to start recording. Now that is the bare bones recording setup. And that's some of these people out there that teach home recording will say that's all you need. And you can make an awesome sound recording. And so much of that is true. Some of that is kind of misleading in my opinion. So the part where they're true is that the gear isn't going to get you to the finish line. Your skills are going to get you to the finish line. Songwriting, recording, it's all skill. You need to develop it. You need to practice it. You need to be able to get better at recording techniques, mixing techniques, songwriting techniques. All that stuff is going to be on you and your own skill alone. So in the minimalist approach, they are correct that you need to develop your skills. So before you invest in anything, you need to ask yourself the question, am I going to stick with this? Am I actually going to take the time to develop that skill? Am I actually going to invest in myself with this? Because if you're not going to invest in yourself with this, it doesn't matter what you buy, it's all waste. So you don't want to go out and buy a computer, you don't want to buy a microphone, even that microphone's on $150 or whatever it is, you're wasting your money because you're just going to put it in the closet and you're going to forget about it. It's going to be a hobby that never was. And so you have to know that you've already have dedicated yourself to some kind of craft. You've already dedicated yourself to maybe playing guitar or writing music or playing in a band or whatever. So that way, when you invest in this equipment, you know you're going to use it. You know you're going to have material to practice with, and you're going to be, somebody who follows through with it. Now, with that being said, what kind of gear do you get now that you decide that you are, ready to make this investment? Do you do what I did and get the most bottom of the barrel stuff, or do you invest in something a little bit more high quality? Because I'm going to suggest to you, do not go bottom of the barrel. Do not do it, because what's going to happen is you're going to eventually outgrow it and you're going to want to upgrade. And so you are essentially buying something, and if it's the bottom of the barrel, the resale value on it is going to be nothing. You're not going to be able to really sell it and trade up. You're going to get some money, but eventually you're going to be at a place where you're basically just starting over and you're going to buy higher ticket items anyway. And so, I worked for a producer who told me when I was going to start investing in higher ticket priced items, he said that when he got started, he bought one microphone. It was a Neumann U87. If you're not familiar with that microphone, it's a classic microphone. It's a classic large diaphragm. It can run you anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000. But he said that he bought that one microphone and did all his recordings with it. And guess what? He still records with it today. He still uses it. He doesn't have to trade it out because it's an awesome microphone. I did the same thing when I turned 18 and I bought myself a new acoustic guitar because I love guitar. I've been playing guitar at that point for almost 10 years. And so I bought myself a Taylor 514 cedar top. And that guitar is a guitar I still have today. I still play it. I still love it. I think it still sounds great. And guess what? I don't plan on upgrading it because I don't need to upgrade it because it sounds awesome. I absolutely love that guitar. It was a worthy investment. That was 11 years ago that I bought it, and I still play it today. So I love it. I am not suggesting to you to go out and buy a $2,000 microphone or buy, a $3,000 preamp or whatever it is. I am suggesting, though, that you do not buy bottom of the barrel. Buy something that you can grow with. If you can afford it, buy something that you never will want to trade out. This is something that you will love. I mean, right out the gate, it'll be easier for you to kind of learn stuff because it just the tools you're using just inherently sound better. So I would suggest that the first thing that you put your money into is a really good computer. A good computer is going to be the thing that you should spend the most money on because without a computer, nothing else matters. There's different ways to think about investing in a computer. You can go desktop, you can go laptop. I personally prefer laptop. I think that having a laptop is awesome because it's great portability. You can do off-location recordings easy. You can do mixing or editing off location if you want to go to a coffee shop or wherever. It's just nice to have the ability to not be stuck in one spot and get stuck in the cave. We live in a modern world, and it's just nice to have the portability. I love it. So I would recommend a laptop if you can afford it. I use a MacBook Pro myself. I love Apple, especially when it comes to recording and audio. It's easily integratable with lots of software, lots of hardware out there. I know there's going to be people out there that will disagree with the Apple thought. They will think Windows is a better route because it's more customizable. It's a little cheaper. It's got a easier point of entry for the price. I can't really speak on Windows or Linux or any of those platforms because I don't use it. So that would be something that you'd have to ask yourself. You'd have to do the research, but I'm just going to let you know that MacBook Pro has treated me well since I've been doing recording. If you go in any major studio that use Apple, I'm assuming there's a reason for that. I just found it to be very easily integratable, really easy to use. Now, I know MacBook Pros can be a little on the pricey side, so you could go secondhand or to the used market. This from my experience, though, I found that my MacBook Pros have lasted about 5 to 6 years. So just be aware of that. If you buy an older computer, you might be dropping $800, $1,000, or whatever it is. And then in a couple of years, you just have to upgrade again. And so just kind of think about that. So one thing you want to look for, too, when you're buying this computer is you want to have 16 gigabytes of RAM at least. I mean, for MacBook Pros, it's the max right now. And then just have good processing power. Look for, just quad core SSD drive. You want those things in your computer just because it's better performance and you're going to have less crashing and all that stuff. Now, if you're just doing songwriting and you're just doing guitars and vocals, you don't need to have like the blazing fast computer. I was running a MacBook Pro 2011 with an SSD drive upgrade and 16 gigabytes of RAM, but it was still like a 2.2 gigahertz processing. I think it was only dual core, and I could run like 80 tracks on that thing. It would sometimes give me problems, but I mean, that's just to give you an idea. So good computer, number one thing you definitely want to get. Number two is you want to get a nice microphone. I highly recommend a large diaphragm condenser. That would be a good all-purpose microphone, especially if you're recording anything from pianos, guitars, vocals. Now the question out there is, well, which one do I get? There are so many brands. There are so many, good microphones out there that you can get. And I'm going to suggest something a little crazy to you. Now, you are getting into the DIY recording space if you're thinking about doing a home recording studio setup to where you are recording yourself. So why not go the extra mile and learn how to build your own microphone? It is not as hard as it sounds. There are lots of kits out there. I have built a large diaphragm condenser that was modeled after a U47 FET, and if you were to buy an actual U47 FET on the market, you're going all the way up to like $3,000 and beyond. And so I was able to build this microphone for $400. $400, which is, definitely mid-price type of microphone if you're going to buy from an actual manufacturer. And it sounds awesome. Sounds so good. I would say that it rivals that $2,000 Neumann U87 or $3,000, whatever it is you paid for it. I say it rivals that. And I only spent $400 on it, and it took me an afternoon to build. If you go to microphoneparts.com, I'll leave a link on the bottom. They have tons of different kits you can use. If you already have a large diaphragm condenser, like a cheap one, there's probably ways to upgrade it. You just need to get a nice soldering iron and some solder. It might run you about $100. But that is a worthy investment because you can take that skill and start building your own microphone cables, and you can start building preamps and compressors, whatever you want, and you can get great stuff for cheap. So forget going to the manufacturer and buying it. Build your own microphone. You're going to get an awesome microphone that you're going to want to keep. You're going to be proud of because you made it, and it's not that hard, and it'll sound great. And it's a good route to go to get a quality microphone for not much money. Now, you have your computer, you have your microphone, you need to get a cable. So again, if you already have that soldering iron, build a cable. But again, you don't need to buy the best cable in the world. People will be like, oh, Mogami, which is MOGAMI. You need to have that. That's the pro cable, and it's going to run you like $50. Or some people say, it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters. Just get a cable that's not, just buy a nice cable, XLR. Next on our list, we are going to talk about audio interfaces. So now that you have a computer, you have a microphone, you have a cable, you now have to be able to take the audio signal and bring it into your computer, and that is what audio interface does. There's a lot of audio interfaces out there now that have many features. They'll have mic preamps, they have the converters, they have other kinds of different kind of connections, whether you want to expand into ADAT, if you want to have digital outs, digital ins, all this kind of stuff. But don't worry about any of that. What we're looking for in an interface is the converters, so taking the analog signal and bringing it into the digital domain, and a couple of preamps. You need a preamp to take a mic signal to bring it to a line level signal. If you don't understand that, don't worry about it. You don't have to know what that means right now. We can talk about that at a later date. Just know that you need a preamp to get your signal into the computer. So there is definitely many different trains of thought on what is the best interface if you want to go budget, if you need to go high end. And there's really no good way to answer this because honestly, I haven't used a lot of different interfaces. I have used the M-Box, which is the bottom of the barrel, which I wouldn't recommend. I've used the Apogee Duet, which was just a fine interface. It's just an easy preamp and converters. Nice, simple to use. I now use a Universal Audio Apollo. I've also used the Aurora, the Lynx Aurora, but that is more of a high-end converter. It's only converter. It does not have any preamps to it, so you need external preamps to run into it. It's a very nice converter, but it is probably going to be too much for you as a songwriter. So I would highly recommend a Universal Audio Apollo, the Twin. The Twin will have um, your two microphone preamps, and it has really nice converters in it. It is definitely going to be a little bit more of your high-end desktop interface, but I believe, again, when it goes back to investing in something that you can grow with, this is a great option. I think it sounds awesome. It also comes with plugins that are a little bit more high-end. They have their own exclusive plugin collection, which do not get suckered into if you are new at this. That is a big trap to continue to buy $100 plus plugins through them. They do sound awesome. They do have their place. I use some myself, but if you are just starting out with this, you do not need them. Stay away from it. Do not even entertain the idea, because you will become addicted and you will spend lots of money that you do not need to spend on things you do not need. So, but the reason why I recommend the Universal Audio Apollo Twin is because it is it's a great overall sounding interface. It does come with the ability to expand into the Universal Audio plugin universe, which is always nice because you cannot run plugins without their hardware. And so it's just nice to have that ability to expand out, especially if you start working with other people that might use their plugins. You can start to share projects. It's not going to be an issue. The other reason why I love the Universal Audio platform is because of low latency recording through it. And I know other interfaces you can do this with, but the thing with the Apollo, which is super cool, is that you can actually record through their plugins that come with it, and you will not get any latency. And it's kind of fun because you kind of get this ability to almost like record with hardware, but in the software domain. And it's just a cool feature to be able to have. It kind of makes things a little bit more just exciting. The user experience is better. So I just recommend that one. I mean, I've used the Apogee Duet, which is very popular, but it's going to run you about the same amount as a Twin. With Twins, you're going to find there's different price points, and the reason is because they have different capacity for their plugins. So you have a single, a double, or duo, and then you have the quad core, which is the amount of plugins you can run, or the Universal Audio Apollo plugins you can run with that particular interface. And if you get a single, it's the cheapest. You're gonna run into issues of just running out of space to run their plugins. So I would recommend a duo or higher if you can afford it. I mean, you can always expand later with their satellites, which is not a problem. Sometimes they run specials where if you buy hardware from them, they'll actually give you a satellite for free. But usually that's for their higher end interfaces like the 8 and above. So just keep your eye out on that. Again, interfaces, research it, look in to see what will be best used for you. But again, I love the Universal Audio Apollo line just because it's something, again, that you can grow with. It's a fun user experience, and I think it's great. So if you are feeling like also the Twin line might not be, another thing to consider is if you have the budget or you have the ability to get into the Apollo 8 range or above, that might not be a bad way to go. I actually do have an Apollo 8 myself because it allows you to be able to record more with like drums. You are able to have more outs for headphones if you need it. It's not necessary if you're just doing singer-songwriter stuff though. So don't really entertain that idea unless you really feel like you are in a band or something and you need to record more. Again, though, with the Twin, you could get 8-at and get an expansion of 8 channels through another or preamp. So you get like an 8 preamp, like an Audient ASP 800 or a Sapphire or whatever, and just expand your Twin and be able to do 10 inputs, but that's up to you. So just look into that, research it. If you have questions about it, let me know and I can explain it more in a future video. So now you have your interface, you have your microphone, you have your computer, you have your microphone cable. You are able to now record music, except we're missing one major piece, which is the DAW, the Digital Audio Workstation. Now, this is another one where people are going to say, well, which is better? Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, Reason. It all kind of depends on what it is you want to do. If I was just starting out, and when I started out, I used Logic, which is great because it is an awesomely powerful DAW, and it's only $200, and it will get you there. So I would recommend, especially if you have an Apple, get Logic. You can't use Logic if you don't have an Apple. It is Apple exclusive. But if you really want to use Logic is great. But I would sometimes maybe recommend starting out with Pro Tools just because that is the industry standard. That is what most people use. So learning Pro Tools is just a skill that if you kind of start to really develop this skill of recording and you start to work in other studios and stuff, most likely they're going to use Pro Tools. But I find that once you kind of know one DAW, learning another DAW is not necessarily the hardest thing to do. I worked in a studio that used Digital Performer. That was just what the producer used and was comfortable with, and it didn't take me long to figure it out and learn it. But yeah, I would say if you're just going to be doing stuff at your own house, Logic is perfect. If you feel like you're going to be going to other studios and using other computers or working with other people that are doing professional work, Pro Tools is probably the best route to go. It is going to run you a little higher price point, but in the end, it's probably worthy skill to have in your back pocket. So really, we have 5 main components to the essential home recording studio setup, which is going to be your computer, your microphone cable, interface, and your DAW. Once you have that, you are ready to go. You are ready to start recording your own music, start editing and mixing, because your DAW will come with all the plugins that you need. You do not need to invest in third-party plugins at this point. Just stick with what you have. They sound good enough to get you there, and you will be well on your way. So these are the essentials, though. I'm going to make a video after this that will talk about the next steps and things I think that you should invest in beyond the essentials that will just make your life easier in general. But right now, these are all you need, except I did just remember that I forgot to mention one thing, which are headphones. A good pair of studio headphones is what you're going to need to record. I totally forgot that. So make that number 6. I would go back and just edit it, but I don't think it matters because you just heard it. Get a good pair of headphones, studio headphones. Don't spend more than $100 on it, maybe $120. You can find good studio headphones on the used market. Audio Technica makes great headphones. You can get Sennheiser, whatever works for you. If you have a pair of Beats already or something like that, you could use those. I don't really recommend it because they definitely do. They don't really have a flat frequency response. But again, don't worry. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. When it comes to recording, you just need to be able to hear yourself and isolate it. So obviously you don't have, music going into your microphone and creating feedback loop. So that is the essential home recording studio setup for you as a songwriter. If you have any questions, please just leave me a comment. I know this is a longer video. There's a lot to cover in this. Really, you have to do your own research and figure out what's going to work best for you, what's going to work in your budget, what's going to work just for your space. But just know that it's better to maybe wait a little bit and save up extra money and get stuff that you can grow with than to just get the bottom of the barrel, entry-level equipment that maybe later you're going to outgrow or just, want to upgrade. So what I found in my experience is that if you really want something bad enough, you'll find a way to make it happen. I want to add a little caveat here. Please don't just open up a credit card and buy this stuff on a credit card and pay it off in installments. Really just try to buy this stuff outright in cash because it is a long-term play. It is not an investment that's probably going to return for you right away, if ever. And so just buy it, save the money first and then buy it. Don't do the payment plans and stuff like that because that just goes into a whole other rabbit trail of what's better, with consumer debt and all that kind of stuff and how you feel about it. But just buy what you can afford. And so with that being said, I just appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. I hope you learned something from this. I hope that it helps you figure out your next steps for how to either get your first equipment or upgrade your equipment. We live in a golden age to where it's so amazing that you don't need that much stuff to be able to start your own recording, and that you can do so much stuff within the computer itself. So yeah, I'm gonna make future videos that explain a little bit further down the road and what that can look like for you. Again, leave me a comment. I hope you got something out of this. It's an absolute honor that you spent some time with me to hear about this subject. If you have, again, any questions, let me know. We'll see you soon. Bye.